Jai Prabhuji, we are continuing our courses about the book Experimenting with the Truth by Prabhuji. And today we are studying a third chapter in which we are going to find questions that consist the element of how to transcend. This is the name that we gave to this chapter. And we will find Prabhuji's answers to those questions. So this consolidation of a few articles that are related to this topic allow us to come across some new points of view of Prabhuji, of his message, that we actually didn't come across as of yet. Of course, generally we speak about the same topic as we spoke. We find in words of wisdom, in scriptures, in words of masters, this element of repetitions, because in essence we're always dealing with the same topic. We come to this wisdom, to associate with this wisdom, in order to gain clarity regarding our condition, regarding the reality. And so the topic that we are dealing with in essence is always the same. Description of the truth, description of the path, description of our problem, current condition, the complication. As we said many times already, we are currently identifying with an entity, with a persona, through which we view all our life, everything, through which we interact with life, and that is the root cause of all our difficulties, problems, complications in life. So we will find repetitions because our teachers on this path, that are those individuals who are situated in a vision that is transcendental to this narrow angle of identification with a persona. We said those are individuals that can speak to us unrelated to their personal story, from a view that is transcendental to it, external to it, and describe reality that is relevant to all of us in any time, in any place, are sharing the same essence in many ways, as we said, in different languages, with different examples, through different paths, but the essence is similar. However, even though there are repetitions and we are dealing essentially with the same topic, and we will repeat many times similar elements, because our intention, as we said, in Swadhyaya, or spiritual study, is not to accumulate new information, but to associate with this way of seeing in order to go through transformation. Even though there are repetitions, still we are going to find, as we said, in this section, new and refreshing angles that can enrich our path intellectually always also, and hopefully our retroprogressive journey, because there are different angles that are coming from this one-pointedness that possibly can give us more tools and more enlightening, more clarification about various topics. The question, however, that we are finding in this section, let's read them. So we are going to find 4 questions. Today we will deal with one of them, and there will be 3 more. The questions are: the first one, could you give me some advice how to improve my meditation? This is again the question that we will read its answer in today's class and speak about it. Prabhuji's answer, of course, and it's a little bit more comprehensive, longer, and we are going to read soon the long version of this question. The second one that we will deal with in this section is: what can we do to become enlightened? The third one, which is similar to the second: was your enlightenment a result of your practices? We can see the similar curiosity regarding how can we become enlightened, if there is anything that can be done. Are there any practices that can lead one to enlightenment, etc.? And the fourth one: how can I improve my relationship with others? That, although it's speaking about somewhat different topic, but we still find here the element of how to transcend. And we will find in Prabhuji's reflection on the topic answer to this question, many angles that can enlighten all of us on the retroprogressive path, on the spiritual journey. More points of view and more clarifications. So in Prabhuji's word, we are going to find some new refreshing angles that we said that we did not meet as of yet. In the question, however, we are going to find very similar elements to the ones that we met also in the previous chapter. The previous chapter dealt with the mind, and in fact this chapter is a very smooth transition because we are dealing with similar questions, attempts, desires, and Prabhuji sheds more clarity regarding those desires of us to transcend or to control the mind or to get rid of the mind or to manage to meditate, etc. All of them are of the same nature. And as we saw in the previous chapter, we took the time to analyze the question in order to meet this dialogue with Prabhuji from the point that we are situated in, which is the mental level. And we said that the questions are very good platform for this because they reflect us. This is the way we would definitely most likely communicate if we attempt to inquire into truth. And in these questions, we can identify all the elements that are characterizing the mind as we learned from Prabhuji previously. So we went over these elements and we can repeat them now again. We will repeat them now again. We can see them again also in these questions as we said, and get again more material to study about this phenomenon of the mind or of us or of our existence as egoic personas. So the first element that we find in them that we can recognize easily is the desire to control. We said to control life, we want to change the situation, we want to manipulate life in some way, while the direction that we receive from the rishis, from the sages, from Prabhuji, over and over and over into the spiritual evolution, into the retroprogressive yoga journey, is of acceptance and not of trying to change or object or manipulate or control. We said we, in fact, as seekers of truth, we want truth. If you want truth, we do not need to change the truth, but we want to accept truth, to come in touch with it. So we see this element in us that is repeating in our lives almost inevitably, and is reflected in our questions when we come to inquire into wisdom. So how do I do it? So what do I do? So how can I change it? So how to meditate? So how can I become enlightened, etc. The second element that we see is the desire for pleasure. The mind is seeking for happiness, we said. It's moving from distress into relief, from pain into enjoyment, dvesha into raga, and we see all this direction reflected in all these questions. We want to improve our life, to feel better, to be happier, to be more peaceful, etc. The third element that we see is the desire to receive a method. We are asking how to, because we want to know what to do. Steps. We interpret the spiritual progress is something that can be achieved thanks to some actions that we are going to do. And this is not what sages teach us and not what Prabhuji will tell us. There is no action that can lead us to liberation. Any action that we will do is coming from this persona, from our identification, from our mental activity. We can only increase the mental activity, but not get out of it thanks to something that we will do or something that we will not do. But we as egos are seeking a method. Once we understand that possibly there is a situation that we would like to be in, such as peace or harmony or meditation or enlightenment, the next step that will come right after it is, so what do I need to do? So we see the third element, which is desire to find a method, a technique, a recipe, specific directions. The fourth element that we can find is that we objectify the mind as if it is different than us in many of these questions. So the mind or the mental activity or our problems, whatever we call it, in every question it will be a little bit different, but we think that there is some entity that is separated than the problems or the mental activity or the difficulty, and that we can do something about this objective problem because we are not them. When in fact we learn that we are the mind. This mental activity is us. We said even just the identification with an I, meaning just the notion that we exist as entities, is coming from the mind. This is already mind. So for sure, anything that will come after it will be part of the mental activity. So we cannot isolate this mind from our existence and do anything about it. The mind, we said, Prabhuji taught us, is thoughts that come and go, but there is no entity there that we can manipulate or do anything about it. And of course, we can also refer to any difficulty in life, any complication, any conflict. These are the minds that we want to deal with as objects to remove from our life or to treat them. And what we learn through the observation and through Prabhuji's word is that all this mental activity is us currently. We can observe and then can create distance, but we cannot do anything mechanic to separate ourselves from this, from our current mental conditioning. Another element, of course, just the identification with an I. We said one of the elements of the mind, one of the components is the ahankara, the thought that I exist, which is the basis of all other thoughts, and all of them clearly reflect in many of those questions. And then we see here that we are asking from the identification with the line of the time, which is another characteristic that Prabhuji shared with us regarding the mind, the mechanic thinking. We are in the past and in the future. We want to do something that in some future, some goal is going to be achieved. And we perceive this goal as distant from our current situation. But if we examine, really our goal is to be situated now in peace. Once we divide this desire we create division into different times, that there is currently a specific state and in the future is going to be some other beautiful, perfect, peaceful state. We are separating the reality that is one, and we want to experience reality that is one. So this is for sure not a direction that can lead us closer to where we want to be situated in. And Prabhuji will always bring us back to this moment, not to the line of the time. Because the line of the time is again where the mind lives. The thoughts, the time, the conflicts, the separation to object, all this is the characteristics of the mental activity, of the mental world, the world of our thoughts, but not of reality, as sages tell us and as Prabhuji will guide us. So as long as we have some goal that is different than the present moment, this goal cannot be meditation, it cannot be enlightenment, it cannot be realization, it cannot be acceptance, it cannot be harmony, because its essence is the opposite of these objectives. Once we situate something in the future, it's necessarily an object. It's necessarily a thought. It's necessary an imagination. It cannot be our reality. And these questions, although they are, for sure, we see how they are originate in the mind, identifying the mind, but still we do not say that these questions are problematic altogether, or that we don't want to ask them. The opposite. This dialogue with the sources that we identify as sources of truth is blessed, like search for water in the desert. Once we recognize that our situation is currently of partial access to the infinitude of life, and we want to transcend ourselves in order to experience life more fully, the questions that will originate from this thirst are blessed, are beautiful. We are still minds, and as minds we will speak the language of the mind. But the desire is blessed, the attempt is blessed, and the approaching of sources of truth is blessed, and it can lead us outward, as we see in different dialogues that we find in many scriptures. We said that we see this pattern of a dialogue of the person who is in confusion, who is inquiring into the truth and approaching a source of wisdom, of knowledge, and we see this beautiful interaction that can help the seeker go outward. And also in this book we find this pattern of dialogue. So we said in these questions, because it is a format of questions and answers, I believe that it allows us this journey that we can go from the point that we are currently situated, not from the meditation, not from the peace, from the harmony and the enlightenment, but from the confusion, from our mind, from our attempt, from our mental questions from the mental conditioning, and outward, slowly, door by door, as Prabhuji walks us. We said that always we will find that Prabhuji is with us, where we are now, and from there he will take us outward slowly through different doors that he opens to us. So again, these questions are not problematic altogether. And we spoke about the fact that there are individuals who may not accept that there is an ultimate plan, a plan of ultimate wisdom. Will not accept that there are individuals who can help other individuals to go out of the ignorant, because they would think that all individuals are equally ignorant, are all limited, are all conditioned. So everybody have different points of view, but no one is in a position to help someone else to transcend the illusion. They may not accept that there is something like enlightenment, something like transcending the mind, because again, we're all humans, and this seems like something very, very inhuman almost, to think outside of our identification as a persona. And we respect those individuals. The retroprogressive yoga will not condemn any genuine path of self-inquiry, in my own opinion. I think that it will bless any effort to inquire in whatever means, through whatever opinions we currently have, as long as we go and seek and ask and attempt to get to wisdom. These are blessed paths. However, I think that most likely whoever listens to this course, and of course myself, are individuals who, while respecting all other individuals in whatever path again, recognize the immense difficulty in transcending our minds by our own minds, and the likelihood that our minds are going to overpower our desire for truth, because our conditioning are so dominant, are so present, are so much controlling us, that it is most likely that they will be served by our desire to inquire only by ourselves and not with an external source, and will not be freed from it. So in other words, the desire or the thought or the opinion that I am going to discover the truth by myself, or none other's truth is of value in order to help me in my own individual journey, most likely is going to serve our egoic tendencies, our psychological patterns, and not free us from the conditioning, because we are enslaved by our mind. And this is why we value so much the help that we are receiving from individuals that we recognize as those who transcended this narrow angle of looking into life, and that can share with us tools and can help us for our own enlightenment, for our own discovery, for our own path of self-discovery. We do not dismiss our individual journey, but we use these divine trails to help us in this path. And we come to Prabhuji to hear his lectures, to read his books, because we want to receive wisdom regarding the state in which he is situated. So not only we are enjoying the dialogue that we are receiving in this book intellectually, mentally, but we also value the association itself because it allows us some contact with Prabhuji. We said that the most significant occurrence is what happens underneath the thoughts, underneath the understanding, the association itself. So we get the opportunity to become in touch, to get in touch with Prabhuji through this dialogue. And again, I think that this specific pattern in the book of a dialogue allows us a very intimate connection with Prabhuji, because we are also there and Prabhuji is also there, and we are working together, hand in hand, in my eyes. And if we feel in this interaction joy, upliftment, enjoyment, happiness, most likely it is not coming because our minds are satisfied. Because as we said, Prabhuji never satisfies the minds. He does not answer the questions in the way that we ask as minds. We want a method, we will not get a method. But he answers us. And I think that if we are enjoying, it is because it satisfies us and not our mind. And this is why we continue on this inquiry with Prabhuji's words and with Prabhuji's hand. So our question of today is as follows. Every time I try to meditate, my mind becomes overactive and scattered. It starts jumping from one idea to another, from one thought to another. Could you give me some advice how to improve my meditation? Okay, so in the article of today, Prabhuji, we've just read the question, and we see that the person that asked this question describing a hectic mind, unfocused mind, and he desires to be able to meditate and to control or manipulate or stop this jumping movement of the mind from place to place. And Prabhuji will start the article by talking about the topic of concentration. An important topic that is going to be presented to us in this article. Prabhuji will start by explaining the importance of concentration and the meaning of concentration, which we will read in the first words of this article. But in general, in this article, we are going to meet some ultimate ground that is going to satisfy the desires of the mind, not thanks to some external control or because we were able to subdue our mind, but because the mind becomes attracted to it, becomes focused on it voluntarily. Just like a child that he can be all the day very noisy and hectic and disturbing and unsettled, but once he comes across his favorite TV show, we can see him sitting still, not hearing us, not seeing us, even though he does not need to seal his ears or close his eyes because he is so focused voluntarily. He has complete silence in a way, complete disconnection from all the directions that can try to get his attention because he is focused on his TV show. Similarly, Prabhuji says that the focus that we want to create in our mind cannot be a result of an external effort, external discipline, but can happen spontaneously because of the attraction of the mind that will want to get focus once it comes in touch with this fresh water, with this sweet water that it enjoys. And in this article as well, we find the pattern that we spoke about, the journey that we spoke about, from the point that we are currently at of an unsettled mind of dispersed attention into the harmony, into the peace, into the concentration, into the acceptance, and outward or upward into ultimately meditation and transcending the mental activity into finding ourselves where we are at currently at this moment, which is always where Prabhuji takes us, always where this association leaves us. So Prabhuji tells us in this article that no matter how much effort we will make, we will not be able to force ourselves to like what we don't like, to love what we don't love, to enjoy what we do not enjoy. And once our mind is still not in enjoyment, in happiness, in satisfaction, it will continue to move. So we will not be able to experience peace. We will not be able to experience focus if our mind is not satisfied. It will continue to move and give us a lot of headache, even though we can sit maybe with crossed legs and close our eyes and not move. But if our mind is not happy in this state, we will not enjoy it. We will not relax in it. We will continue to suffer from the jumping of the mind. And the retroprogressive process that Prabhuji walks us through always brings us to acceptance of our situation, to see what currently there is in us, not to again alter the reality and seek some focus if currently we are not focused. It will always invite us to shed light on our patterns and bring more awareness rather than lack of awareness. An external discipline can never bring us more awareness, because instead of being aware of ourselves, we are replacing our own evaluation with some external program that we don't even know if we like, if we appreciate, because we are not here to evaluate if there is no awareness. It's necessarily coming with lack of awareness because it's not ours. It's something external that we try to force ourselves. And if we are trying to go through some process in ourselves without studying our mind, our intimate desires, fears, patterns, our mind is going to resist. If we suppress our mind, it is going to fight back. If we are unkind to our mind, unfair to our mind, do not respect it, it is going to fight back and not allow us this space. Perhaps we will be able to adapt external disciplines and adapt very well to society's expectations because our internal world is completely ignored. But in this situation, what is happening is that our internal world is in fact shut down. And again, we do not even know if the ways that we follow are our intimate desires because there is no awareness to evaluate what really we want. We replace our own judgment with external program. And I think that what Prabhuji tells us in general about dealing with our internal world, with our demons, what we can call, our patterns, our past, our wounds, is to bring clarity and awareness because they live thanks to lack of awareness. All our psychological patterns are a result of lack of awareness, lack of clarity. So the way to deal with them must be necessarily to bring more light, to bring more air, as we found in the article where Prabhuji spoke about the coverings, that we do not expose this wound that is called ego, and therefore it cannot be healed. We want to expose by seeing, by looking. And by this, we do not mean to act upon them. This is very different, and it is very important to make this distinction. Prabhuji does not talk about actions, but about awareness. And I believe that we can identify two different approaches of dealing with what we call the demons. One approach can be what we mentioned of suppressing, of ignoring, of following some external expectations. And by this we are disconnecting from our internal world and do not bring more awareness but lack of awareness. The other approach that we can recognize is to try to connect ourselves and act upon it and follow our guts, be who we are, not suppress ourselves. And this approach we can find, I think, it is very prominent in today's era. Everybody tries to follow their own feelings and be genuine to themselves and to their truth and not necessarily follow others' opinions, etc. But in acting upon our wills and desires that are the result of lack of awareness, it is more likely that we are going to create more harm, both to ourselves and to others. And what Prabhuji talks about again is not on ignoring our internal world and not on acting upon it freely and not on licentiousness, but on awareness, on observation, giving legitimation not to actions, but to whatever there is now in us, seeing it, because the light is going to bring to us more harmony, more peace, let patterns, and the result of this light, of the peace, of the acceptance, of the connection with ourselves, will give birth to harmonious actions, not to actions that will violate further our internal world and also the internal worlds of others, but actions that will be more favorable because they will be a result of more awareness. So this is my understanding of the direction of Prabhuji to work with our patterns, psychological patterns. So Prabhuji starts the article with explanation about concentration and its benefit. So let's hear. According to Raja Yoga, concentration, dharana, comes before meditation, dhyana. Dharana is the sixth step of the Ashtanga Yoga of Patanjali, who explains, Desha bandhas chittasya dharana. Concentration, dharana, is the process of maintaining or fixing the attention of the mind on an object or place. Yoga Sutra 3.1. Concentration involves willfully and consciously directing the attention at a certain object. Consequently, mental agitation decreases and attention focuses on a single point. Concentration allows us to forget objective reality and facilitates meditation. So after in the question we saw the description of the hectic mind, of the jumping mind, Prabhuji starts the article by explanation about what is concentration. And in the light of Patanjali Maharishi's words regarding dharana or concentration, Prabhuji reveals to us that concentration are collection of all the dispersed rays of attention of our mind into a focal point, and that in this what we create is not only peace and happiness, but favorable conditions for meditation, for transcendence, for penetration into the reality, into knowing. From the hectic mind, where our mind is in so many directions, there are no conditions for contemplation, for even clarity of thinking, and for going deeper into relaxation, and for going deeper into meditation, into the ability of being in touch with the reality. By creating the conditions of the concentration, where our mind is more focused, is more peaceful, then the spontaneous happening of meditation is much more likely. Many students, professionals, and artists wish they had better concentration because it is crucial for their work. Since concentration often does not come easily, we have seen lately the appearance of numerous new methods aimed to improve it. So here further Prabhuji tells us that many of us seek this state of concentration, even if not on what we call the spiritual journey or some religious path, but even in the world, we value, we appreciate, we understand the benefit of concentration in our lives, not just for our happiness, for our peace, but also to achieve many different goals. In other words, Prabhuji tells us here, all of us are aware of the significance, of the benefit of the concentration. And this is why we can find many methods that will recommend to us, promise to us that concentration will happen if we follow some specific practice, discipline, etc., some specific method. Let's hear further from Prabhuji what is actually the problem with this concentration, with creating this concentration. However, without understanding that our mind follows our heart, no technique will help us. It is very difficult to concentrate on something that we do not love. We are truly present wherever our heart is, but we often try to focus on objects that we are not devoted to. So, Prabhuji tells us, after we heard Patanjali Maharishi's words about concentration, we understood how much it is favorable. We understood it is not only favorable for discovery of truth, of reality, but also in many topics in life. We understood that there are also many methods that suggest to us concentration, try to help us with focusing the mind. Still we understand there is a problem. What is the problem? Why it is not so easy? Why we need to do so many efforts and still we do not succeed? Even though we try so many methods, our mind is still hectic, it's still unsettled. Prabhuji tells us simply, in one short sentence, the mind follows the heart. So as we said previously, we can force ourselves to be in some posture physically, or to do some action, or to try to remember some thoughts and repeat it, or to try to repeat some mantra. But if our mind is not enjoying, is not interested, it's not deriving satisfaction, it will move and it will torture us. We will not get peace. It will be more difficult. It will be more hectic if we are going against it. The mind thinks what it wants, does what it wants, likes what it wants. It is free. Again, we can do actions, but we cannot change our mind easily if we are not in cooperation with it. And from here, from this understanding that we cannot do something external that is disconnected from our mind, and by this changing our own mental activity and creating focus in our lives, Prabhuji now will take us into the first door, which is in creating integration. So let's read Prabhuji's words. Our interests and cares are not all in one place. Most people have a variety of interests such as basketball, cats, money, children, family, country, and thousands of other things. When looking at them superficially, they appear to be different affections. Yet, it is possible to integrate all of them into a single focal point of concentration if we realize the common source hidden behind them. Life branches out into a large variety of areas, and our activities require integration. For example, work seems to be disconnected from family duties. However, they are deeply intertwined. While working, we actually fulfill our duties as members of a family. The yogic approach integrates our diverse occupations, affections, and inclinations. So here, Prabhuji starts to walk us outward from the lack of concentration and inability to find concentration, from the problems in forcing concentration upon our scattered mind, into starting to create integration. Prabhuji says that many times we perceive our lives as very scattered and dispersed because we look at them with divided eyes. But once we are going to look more deeply, we will be able to recognize the integration, the unity. So before we are going into the yogic path, which is where we will continue to work with Prabhuji, even in every situation in life, I believe that what we can learn here from Prabhuji's words is that a deeper look, more contemplation, can allow us to find more integration in our lives. We are the common denominator. So if we look carefully, we can unite all the dispersed activities and directions of our attention and recognize the unity, the connection between them. Of course, this integration is still relative. We're not speaking about the integration of the yogic path, again, which is the direction in which Prabhuji takes us to. But any contemplation can reveal more integration. So, first step, we spoke about the same situation, that just the observation creates the integration. Now Prabhuji concludes this paragraph by saying that the yogic path aspires for creating this integration. So it aspires to allow us to recognize our lives and walk in our lives as one complete, integrated entity, and not as dispersed entities, which currently we can feel that it is the situation of many of us. We have different desires, different relationships, different points of interest. And in many cases we may feel that we cannot reconcile all of them, and they will create in us some division. The yogic path will not narrow us to one occupation. We can still be occupied in many fields and activities. But our attention is focused on ourselves as integrated entities with integrated goal, with integrated understanding. Why we do what we do, where we are heading, even as egos. Yes, we speak here as we identify in the questions regarding the mind as egos, as personas. So we spoke about the persona, but we create more integration if our goals as a persona are clear, are one-pointed. We're going to a specific direction with a specific understanding, and then everything that we will do will be the result of it. The interpretation that we will give to all situations in life will be interconnected with our main intention, with our main direction in life. So these paths are able to create in us more integration, more one-pointedness, again, regardless of the activities that we may be dealing with. Activities are what happens on the surface, but what we speak here is about our attention, is about our focus, is about our consciousness, not regarding actions that we do or do not do. And this explanation and understanding regarding integration sets to us a good ground into talk about an important topic in Hinduism, and more specifically in the devotional aspect of Hinduism or bhakti yoga, which is the topic of Ishta Devata, or one's preferred deity, which is where Prabhuji takes us in the next paragraph. After explaining to us the importance of integrity in our lives, he walks us through this beautiful, significant tool that is offered to us by this yogic path to facilitate integration. So let's read. Relating to the deity in the proper way may facilitate our integration and concentration. We should understand that the Ishta Devata, or preferred deity, is not an object among many others, but includes everything. Therefore, nothing separate from this deity can distract our attention. In our Ishta Devata, we can find the same satisfaction that is provided by any attractive object in the universe. If we have $100, we also have the cents contained in that sum. We do not lack cents because we only have dollars. By contemplating on the whole, we will naturally cease to worry about the parts, and our mind will stop jumping from one object to another. this concentration spontaneously flows into meditation. Unlike mundane love, devotion to God is inclusive. It contains everything that evokes in us some degree of affection and attraction. Authentic bhakti is born from the understanding that the deity is a representation of the whole, and that the objects disappear to reveal themselves as inseparable parts of God. So Prabhuji here talks to us about this topic of the Ishta Devata, or one's preferred deity. A specific name, a specific form, a specific relationship with some aspect of the divine. And this is a big topic in Hinduism, which we are going to touch just very little, thanks to this paragraph. But it can be a very good start if we have no familiarity and possibly even some difficulty with this topic. Because Prabhuji talks to us about the essence of this practice, of this spiritual or religious practice. Of course, many listeners could be individuals who are familiar with this space thanks to the culture that they belong to, or maybe to some spiritual path that they have already adopted. But possibly others may not be. And this is again a good, small little window into this topic that we are going to go more deeply into further classes, further courses regarding this book, Experimenting with the Truth. And the important sentence that we find is this paragraph that Prabhuji tells us, in my opinion, is the beginning, which says that if we relate to the deity, to the Ishta Devata, in the proper way, it can facilitate for us integration and meditation. Meaning that what is important is the proper way in which we relate to the deity. As always, the retroprogressive yoga does not deal with external conditions, with actions, with how things look, but with our own internal subjective process, with our own experience, with our own intention, with our understanding. This is what is going to determine the benefit, the enjoyment, the experience that we are going to have in this particular practice. So it is not that there are specific actions that we can do or recommended to do and that we are expected to receive some results such as concentration and integration. But what will determine is the way that we follow these practices, our subjective word, our subjective understanding, subjective experience. What Prabhuji tells us about this proper way to refer to this deity is that once we do not see the deity as one object among many others, once we do not see the deity at all as an object, as something external, but we relate to it as the totality. For us, this deity is a representation of the totality that includes all the objective worlds of phenomena, including ourselves. Then this can create favorable conditions for integration, for concentration. Once we're relating to this deity as my God, that is maybe better than other gods, that makes me maybe superior to others, that makes my path better than other path, we are relating to it as an object, as something partial, as something external. And this is not the path on which Prabhuji tells us that is likely to create harmony, that is likely to create unity, that is likely to create integration, concentration as conditions for ultimately for meditation, because it is consciousness that can create division, separation, mental perception of life, categorizing the reality to different names, to different shapes, to different manifestations, and not looking at it as one totality that includes everything and everyone, which this is the vision that Prabhuji tells us is the favorable vision in order to enjoy of this process, of this relationship with our preferred deity in the way that will facilitate, again, concentration and integration in our lives. And now we are going with Prabhuji's words into transcending duality, continuing with the doors that Prabhuji opens to us. In idolatry, God is just another object among many. A religion limited to the subject-object plane cannot guide us beyond concentration. In order to meditate, we have to stop being religious and forget any ideas, beliefs, or concepts about God. When we transcend duality, we no longer speak of Christianity, Judaism, or Hinduism, but of pure subjectivity. What Prabhuji tells us here is that a religion that is limited to the subject-object plane, to the dualistic level, cannot take us outward to transcendence, because we are in the level of the division again, of seeing parts. I do not think that when Prabhuji says that there is such a religion that leaves us divided, and that there is a religion that can take us upward transcendentally from the division into pure subjectivity, he refers to different religions that we are not familiar with. But I believe that Prabhuji talks about the same religions. It can be Judaism, it can be Hinduism, it can be Christianity, it can be Islam, Zen, and so many more. All of this religion takes us into the vision that Prabhuji spoke with us regarding, of seeing our God as the totality, of seeing ourselves as part of this totality, or the entire totality. And in essence, none of them speaks to us about different nations, different people, different categories, division, separation, differences, because religions do not deal with the subject-object plane, but then aspire to bring us into this pure subjectivity from which they originate. And I think that what Prabhuji directs us here is whatever religion we practice, to aspire for this vision, not to change our religion, not to oppose a specific religion, to prefer specific religion, or even not at all deal with the question whether we are considered a religious person or a secular person. I think that Prabhuji talks to us again about the consciousness that we can follow and adapt and aspire to be situated in all different paths of life, of seeing life outside of the different categories, of the different divisions, of seeing ourselves as parts, and of remaining in this consciousness that perceive life in this dual level of subject and object. He directs us into the transcendence, into pure subjectivity, which ultimately, again, is where all the prophets were situated, about what all the prophets speaks with us. They do not speak with us about some category, some party, some group that we want to belong to and oppose other group. They talk to us about fulfillment of our potential as beings, divine potential, by recognizing this totality and surrendering to this totality, whatever will be the name that this totality was given. It can get different names, but what is important is not the specific name, but the intention with which we interact with the specific name. So we will summarize this article before Prabhuji's concluding words. We started this article from the understanding of the importance of concentration and from the understanding of what is concentration. Then Prabhuji talked with us about the benefit and the aspiration of all human beings to facilitate more integration, more concentration in their lives, and that we have many options, but nevertheless it is not easy to really create concentration because the mind follows the heart. So we understood from Prabhuji that we cannot follow some external discipline and by this create peace, focus in our minds, because the nature of the mind is to be dispersed, to be hectic, to move unless it is satisfied, unless its thirst is satisfied. From there, Prabhuji led us into the importance of creating integration. He told us that the integration is the objective of the yogic path, and that we can create more integration by going deeply and examining our life. We may see ourselves as very dispersed, but more contemplation, more reflection can reveal to us that in fact our life is integrated. And we went further with the understanding regarding the integration and the importance of it in our life into the yogic path of the Ishta Devata, or worshipping a preferred deity, developing a specific relationship with God. This can also be relevant to all religions. We have different names to God, different manifestations, different stories, and the relationship with this God, with the divine, and facilitating in our lives more love of God is a very good ground for transcendence, for meditation, for creating this focus that we wanted to create in our lives. It's a very good consciousness to develop in order to be less dispersed, less unsettled with our minds. And from there we understood further that the specific way that we relate to our God is of major importance in order to create integration, and that the specific way that Prabhuji refers to is when we see our God as the totality itself, not as an object in our world of phenomena that is separate from our objects and that is separate from us, but as the totality. And this is the ultimate ground with which we are funding ourselves in order to go further with Prabhuji's word into meditation, which is always where we meet ourselves again with this association with Prabhuji. And in this we will finish today's class. Thank you for joining. Jai Prabhuji. In meditation, we remove religion in order to enter the realm of pure consciousness, of what is, of the self. We recognize the ocean in the wave, the whole in the part, and the absolute in the depths of our interior. Real concentration leads us to discover that nothing can divert our attention from the one divine nature that underlies everyone and everything.